From our vantage point at the village center and looking about, we spotted what appeared to be an actual mansion here within the tiny town, the smaller but extravagant building out of place. Curious, we headed northeast and in its direction. Approaching what was certainly the nicest and best kept home in the village, the residence was clearly owned by someone with wealth, power, and prestige. Standing at the base of the stairway leading up to the dwelling's front door were two men dressed in brown robes. If we didn't know better, the two men appeared to be twin brothers, each eyeing us suspiciously as we approached. As we neared to within 10 feet, the pair quickly looked away as if not wanting to speak to us or even acknowledge our presence here whatsoever. Still, I thought I would begin the conversation with an attempt to perhaps get on their good side. "Excuse me, can we help you two in some way? The fact that you don't know who we are," one of the men disrespectfully responded, "tells us that you don't belong here in Oolahtz," the second man continued, finishing the first man's sentence. "We are new to the village," Kartha carefully responded, all of us sensing that these two strangers may be difficult to deal with. "This is certainly a very nice home, we're just curious who lives here." "The better question is," the first man replied, now eyeing us even more suspiciously. "Who are all of you?" The second man added, again completing the first man's sentence. "We're here to help the people of Chagaria," Ariana replied, perhaps saying a little too much. "If you're not going to answer our questions, then just say so and we will be on our way." "Regardless of why you're here," the first man responded. "You have no business with the Master Ultimate," the second man said, again completing the first man's sentence. "Now go." Both men commanded together. Sensing my party growing more irritable, I decided to try leveraging my intelligence and attempt to outsmart the annoying men. The two men continued to defy me, however, the second man continuing to finish the sentence of the first man. After a few more arguments, the front door of the well-maintained house slowly opened. Standing there was another tall person, this one wearing a black cloak and appearing rather agitated. "Those yellow triangles sewn around the cuffs of the black cloak," Redfern observed, whispering into my ear. "He's an actual ultimate and is likely very powerful, we dare not cross him." "What are you hooligans doing here?" the man in black shouted, surprisingly outraged. "Don't you know who I am? Stop annoying my assassin guards, or I will have them chop you up into tiny pieces." Taking an offensive stance, both men in brown withdrew perfect, razor-sharp short swords that glowed with a dull orange light, certainly magical. I sensed that the situation was quickly growing out of control. Hoping to perhaps reset our encounter here, I softened my approach and spoke kindlier to the men, using all my natural charisma to improve the conversation. Unfortunately, the effort only seemed to make the men angrier. The ultimate standing in the doorway sneered one last time, then seemingly retreated into his home. A moment later, more men dressed in the same brown robes stepped out of the doorway and in our direction, glowing short swords out and at the ready. The dozen or so assassins stepped just behind the original two men as the ultimate himself reappeared in the doorway, still quite upset. "All of you have incurred my wrath. Leave now or be butchered like pigs right here in the street." "Lam Tora, this isn't our fight, let's retreat," Kartha whispered, Eswin and Ariana agreeing with the mutant. "That's the best decision," Redfern added, keeping his eyes on the man in black robes. "The ultimate there is likely the most powerful sorcerer we've faced, and there is little to achieve here. Besides, we should be keeping a low profile here in Oolahtz," Sainairs added as a reminder. My entire party in agreement, all of us backed away from the potential conflict here, soon several dozen feet away and, hopefully, out of any danger. Noting the Nemesis plant garden to the east of the mansion, and that the sun was about to set, we escaped back to our tents for a few hours in preparation of soon raiding the garden. We waited until midnight or so, then returned to the Nemesis plant garden entrance here just to the east of the Master Ultimate Mansion under cover of darkness. The large garden was surrounded by a tall stone fence, while the main gate leading out of Oolahtz stood further to the southeast. A path led north into the garden, ending at a small wooden gateway that appeared to be the only way to enter the garden, currently closed and locked. Peering into the wooden gateway, we recognized what was growing beyond, dozens of Nemesis plants. The carnivorous vegetation gently rustled in the wind, the plants looked docile now, but I recalled my last encounter with one back in the caves north of Tobin and how their root systems can tear living tissue limb from limb. Those are Nemesis plants," Ariana whispered, recalling what a single plant had done to her brother Benjamin near the very start of our adventures. Turning to Ariana, I could see the pain and shock and utter heartbreak flooding back to her, as if her brother's murder at the hands of Darius and Rachel had just happened minutes ago. Ariana bit her lip and turned away, a silent tear running down her face. The rest of my heroes couldn't help but notice Ariana's sudden change in emotion and naturally inquired. Briefly explaining to the party what had happened to Ariana's brother, I attempted to handle the situation with compassion and grace, revealing enough information to inform my friends without distressing Ariana any further. The young elf gently nodded to me, finding warmness in my words and remaining at my side. "Get away!" a young man's voice shouted from behind, surprising all of us. Turning around, we watched a younger human shuffle forward from the vicinity of the farmer's market to the south, his clothes in tatters, his hair unkempt and his eyes wild and bloodshot. He seemed angry with us as he staggered forward, warning us to stay away as he fumbled for the garden gate. "I won't let you steal the nymph-fruit, it's mine," the man warned again, quite defensive as he reached the gate. "We're not your enemies," I said in a low voice, not wanting to attract any attention here. Completely ignoring my response, the young man grabbed hold of the wooden gate and started to pull, apparently trying to break into the garden beyond. Mumbling something about needing nymph-fruit to survive, he quickly pulled with all his strength, the man nearly crazy in his obsession to get it. A blinding flash of light suddenly stabbed our eyes, the young man disappearing within a cloud of smoke as if just struck by lightning. Moments later, all we could see was a small mound of dust lying where the man had just been standing. "The poor soul has been disintegrated," Redfern gasped, recognizing the deadly magical effect. "It appears the gate is magically protected. The poor man must have run out of nymph-fruit and needed more," Kartha suggested, appalled by what we had just witnessed. "Is the fruit that addictive?" "Easily," Redfern responded, knowing all too well what it can do. "I watched my own father succumb to it, to the point where he lost all his reason and control. It is truly evil, wretched stuff. Despite the danger, this must be where the witch doctor wants us to dig up those roots," Eswin reminded the party, turning to me. "Lam Tora, do you still have that magical stone he gave you?" Feeling in my pocket, the stone still there, I nodded affirmatively. However, having just witnessed what happened to the young man here, I was unsure of whether I wanted to try and open the gate. "Trust the stone, Lam Tora," Kartha requested with a reassuring smile. "It will be all right." Reaching into my pocket and retrieving the witch doctor's magic stone, I gave my friends an apprehensive look before stepping to the gate, about to put the stone to the ultimate test. As I reached for the gate, however, it suddenly unlocked itself and creaked open a few inches, apparently allowing us to enter. I gave the gate a gentle push, opening it further and proving that the disintegration magic had been disabled. Eswin nodded, then led the party into the garden beyond. Quickly reaching the nemesis plants, each of them some 20 feet in height and bearing the brown, withered fruits that provided magical power but stole the consumer's conscience as well, we walked among them as cautiously as we could, remembering that they were semi-sentient creatures and would attack if they sensed food nearby. "All we need is a single root," Redfern whispered, unsure of how best to retrieve one. "But we can't leave any evidence of our being here." "What now?" Standing there near the center of the garden, we began to hear a faint sound, a soft wailing or moaning. Investigating, the sound grew a little louder, as if someone were sobbing nearby. Reaching the center of the garden, the immediate area rather dark from all the nemesis plants standing here, we were stunned to see what appeared to be a translucent elf dressed in regal clothing sitting on a small wooden bench. "What is that?" Eswin whispered, his instincts warning him to be very careful. That is a banshee, I believe." Kartha gasped, horrified. "Its wail is known to kill those who hear it. The spirit seems so unbearably sad," Ariana whispered, herself in a dark place amongst the nemesis plants. "Let me talk to her." "Is that wise?" Sainairs asked, surprised. "This creature appears undead, it could destroy us." "I don't think so," Ariana responded fearlessly before stepping toward the apparition. "Be calm, spirit," Ariana suggested as she approached. "Why do you suffer so?" "My lover, Thuridin, has been slain, in this very spot." The semi-transparent creature responded in between sobs, inconsolable. "These plant monsters consumed his very soul." The spirit's wailing grew louder, Kartha warning the party that if her cries reach a crescendo, it could kill all of us here in the garden. Yet Ariana sat down beside the ghostly figure, her own soul bruised by the loss of her brother to the nemesis plants. About to let loose with a deadly wail, the banshee instead turned to Ariana, sensing a second soul in almost as much pain as itself. I, too, lost the most important person in my life to these wretched plant monsters. Ariana acknowledged, fighting back the tears. I know your pain. Still hopelessly sad, the banshee raised her incorporeal hand and placed it directly into Ariana's chest, as if she could feel for Ariana's pain. The living elf then stopped her own tears, lifted her chin and replied to the deceased elf. But I will avenge his death. I will help rid the world of these cursed nemesis plants, and I will avenge the death of your lover as well. The banshee looked deep into the eyes of Ariana, the ghostly creature perhaps sensing another mortally wounded soul. Yet Ariana's courage could also be sensed by the spirit, the banshee suddenly confused. Recognizing the opportunity, Kartha stepped toward the banshee to provide her own spiritual support, followed by Redfern and then the rest of my party. The spirit looked to all of us, still greatly confused and bordering on a terrible wail. Instead, the banshee showed the slightest hint of a smile and then faded away, her spirit apparently put to rest. Thank you, Ariana, for opening your heart despite all the pain, Kartha said softly, putting her hand on Ariana's shoulder. All of us owe you our lives. Ariana nodded and wiped away another tear, the encounter incredibly painful but also quite moving. Moments of stunned silence passed, the encounter with the banshee unforgettable. Eswin then reached for a smaller knife and bent down to one knee, beginning to dig into the hardened soil here. Enough of this place, let's get what we came for and get out of here. Digging just a few inches down, the warrior quickly reached one of the roots here, extracting a sliver several inches long before reburying the tiny hole as to leave no trace of our being here. Eswin then wrapped the root within a spare bandage and handed it to me, our mission here accomplished. Perhaps aware that it had basically just been attacked, the nemesis plant here started to move on its own accord, warning us that it was time to flee. Eswin led the way, and quickly we departed the haunted garden, glad to be free of all the wicked vegetation as well. Perhaps we should set fire to the entire garden. Ariana half suggested, hateful of all the plants. That would get us caught, and worse, Redfern replied, his analysis accurate. But someday, perhaps. While already past midnight, we hightailed it back to the witch doctor's shop in the opposite corner of the Nemesis garden, hoping he would see us right away. Indeed, a little pounding at the front door was all it took for the middle-aged pharmacist to let us in and deal with us right away. Naturally, we quickly offered Nanuit the nemesis plant root we had just dug up within the garden. The witch doctor nodded and took the root as if we had delivered to him a newborn child. Well done, the primitive alchemist exclaimed as he stepped over to his workbench. I have my anti-scrying potion all ready to go, I just need to grind up this root and add it to my concoction. Eswin stepped over to a nearby window to ensure that our party wasn't followed, my heroes now waiting for the witch doctor to prepare the root and complete his potion. 10 minutes later, Nanuit returned to our party carrying a single potion flask, it appeared his work was done. Now, are you sure you didn't leave any trace of your theft within the garden? The witch doctor asked, his expression most serious. As sure as we can be, Ariana replied with a soft smile. Nanuit nodded, then handed me the potion he had just made, its contents a muddy brown. Good. Hey, race my concoction, just as I promised. Drink this, and you and your friends should be temporarily shielded from the scrying magic of the ultimates. For how long? Sainairs asked, a good question. You'll have about 20 days or so of protection. Make it count. Holding the potion, I quaffed its contents without delay, its taste terrible but its power exactly what we needed. Moments later the potion was gone, though I didn't feel any effects from the magic whatsoever. It is done, Nanuit said with a deep sigh. Now, find a way out of this village and do your best against the ultimates. If you're unable to do anything within the next 20 days or so, then flee Chagaria and never return, it will never be safe for you again. All of us acknowledged and thanked Nanuit for the advice, the encounter now at an end. Returning to our campsite, most of us slept until nearly noon the next day, thankful that we were magically protected now from the scrying of the ultimates and sensing that, perhaps, we could actually succeed with our mission. Next, we needed to find a way out of the village. Breaking camp, we decided to start on the far southeastern corner of Oolahtz. Although we didn't find a way out of town, we did find some sort of local governmental institution and thought that perhaps we could learn more there. Just inside the main entrance was a large bulletin board fastened to the wall, a variety of paper-based postings pinned upon the board. Given our curiosity about anything going on here in Oolahtz, we gave the bulletin board a quick glance. The dozen or so postings here had all been written by different people, it seemed, each focusing on some sort of personal announcement meant for the entire village to review and accept. One posting dealt with a man seizing the remains of an abandoned home on the south side, another announced the coming of a new business, while a third warned all to stay away from a new vein of silver recently found nearby. There seems to be little government oversight here, Redfern posited, seeing a pattern in all the announcements. It's as if everyone is free to do whatever they wish, regardless of how it affects others. Suddenly, the clear sound of a dog barking echoed from further within the building, something quite unexpected. My heroes looked at me, then Ariana stepped away to learn more, quickly followed by the rest of my party. The town hall mostly empty, we spied activity in the southeast corner where a young man appeared to be in some sort of altercation with several older men and women, the local town officials we presumed. One of the officials was holding the leash to a large dog, the obvious source of the barking. I said I want the dog back. The young man exclaimed, making a fuss. He's mine to do as I please. Wait your turn. Another of the officials called to my party before turning back to the angry young man. I sensed that the young man had somehow lost the dog and wanted it back, but the hamlet officials here were apparently unwilling to turn the animal over. Both sides seemed unusually angry, and I wondered what circumstances had caused the altercation. Yes, you have the right to do anything you wish, one of the female officials responded, taking a step toward the young man. And we have the right to not have our food stolen from us in the middle of the night by this blinking dog. The young man sneered, the woman apparently onto something. I don't know what you're talking about. A blinking dog? Ariana whispered, surprised. Does she mean a blink dog? I had heard of such animals, medium-sized, short-haired dark brown dogs with the natural ability to teleport several dozen feet. I was also surprised to see one, especially in such a bleak, dangerous place like this. We think you've been forcing your hound to blink into people's homes, steal what it can and return to you. Another of the officials condemned, an apparent warrior. You know what we do to thieves. The official drew his blade and guided it across his open wrist, indicating that thieves here in town pay for their ways by having their hands chopped off. The young man just sneered, however, not intimidated. You can't prove anything. Now, give me my damn dog. Full of rage, the thug approached the dog, his hand out to pull the animal away from the town officials. In turn, the dog backed away and growled. It apparently didn't want anything to do with him. Still not intimidated, the young man then reached directly for the dog, intent on pulling it with him. The dog instead attempted to bite the young man, causing him to retreat a step or two. Ha! The soldier official shouted with a grin. It does not even like you. The young man tried again, and again the dog nearly bit him. Equally angry and embarrassed now, the thug withdrew his short sword, arming himself and about to do something quite cruel. I see you've tricked it into making me its enemy. If I can't have the dog, then nobody can. The young man was about to slay the animal. How much for the dog? I suddenly shouted from 20 feet away, drawing everyone's attention. The young man halted his aggression and turned to me, looking my party over as if deciding whether to attack us instead. He then called out, answering my question. The mutt is worth at least 1,000 gold. You got that much? How about we let you live? Eswin countered, drawing his blade and approaching the cruel man. Easily intimidated by our physical superiority, Ariana condemned him first before Eswin chased the arrogant brat away. Ariana nodded to me, then stepped over and gently placed her hand on the animal, calming it. Moments later, the situation was resolved, the young man had departed and we were now the owner of a thankful blink dog. Someone should teach that young man some manners, Kartha scolded, unhappy with the dog's former owner. I wish someone would, one of the officials there responded, still annoyed with the young man as well. He's been a troublemaker all his life. None of you look familiar, another official stated, eyeing us suspiciously. How long have you been in Oolahtz? Oh. The last thing we wanted was to be talking with the natives here about who we are and what we're doing in Chegaria. I needed to come up with something, and fast. Could we offer all of you a free drink at the tavern? Offering the town officials here a free drink at the local tavern, they looked to one another with some surprise, as if the concept of buying some alcohol for another was a foreign idea. You insult us. One of the men here said with a frown. We're total strangers, why would you buy anything for me? You must not be from around here, are you even from somewhere here in Chegaria? Overhearing the conversation, the armed man at his desk behind us then rose to his feet and looked to us, his suspicion aroused as well. Concerned, Eswin whispered in my ear, tugging me away from the three humans standing there. I think it's time we leave. Hurriedly exiting the village center, we took the road due north and scrambled into what appeared to be the town merchant, the tiny building itself decrepit and falling apart. Stepping inside, the place was an absolute mess and we suspected the merchant was more a hoarder than a businessman. Worse, the building reeked of nemfruit, the young man here must have been consuming the wicked substance as well. What do you all want? The merchant demanded to know, eyeing us crazily like we had come to steal from him. I ain't seen the likes of any of you before, the merchant commented as we completed a quick and awkward sale, the young human watching my entire party like a hawk. I catch any of you stealing my stuff and I will have them chop off your hands. We're the last people to steal from you, Kartha attempted to console the shopkeeper. You have nothing to fear from us. I suspect everyone. The merchant barked back. You can't trust no one here. Is everyone here as paranoid as you? Eswin asked, rather rudely but honestly. What you call paranoid most of us call careful, the young man replied, still quite suspicious of all of us. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, the only one you can trust is yourself. Do you know anything about the one nemesis plant? Redfern quietly inquired. The shopkeeper turned in Redfern's direction and sneered, perturbed by the question. That's not something you talk about. I should report you to the Master Ultimate. And with that, the merchant went quiet, no longer interested in even talking with us. Leaving the merchant and continuing north, we quickly entered what appeared to be a farmer's market, several open carts loosely joined together offering all manner of meats, dairy, fruits, and vegetables for sale. This could be a welcome change from our standard rations, Eswin commented, eager to consume some real food. Let's go have a look. Spending about 5 minutes to thoroughly search the carts, we discovered that none of the food was worth even a single copper piece, the meats were rotten and maggot-infested, the dairy was quite sour and disgusting, and the fruits and vegetables weren't any better. Appalled by the sorry state of the food, I was tempted to give the middle-aged human woman here a piece of my mind. Shush! The woman ordered after several of my party condemned the vendor for the terrible state of the food here. You'll drive away my business. Who, in Sisla's name, would want to buy any of this? Sainairs lamented, shocked and appalled. Nearly everyone. The woman responded, surprised by the question. You have got to be joking. Eswin complained, rolling his eyes. As if on cue, a young townsman strolled into the marketplace and examined some of the food here. Surprised that he would be interested in any of it, we watched in stunned fascination as the man settled upon several moldy apples, willing to trade a slice of nemfruit for them. The vendor nodded, accepted payment and allowed the young man to take 5 thoroughly disgusting apples, biting into one of them and almost making me gag. I see, Redfern whispered to me, solving the mystery. He's recently consumed some nemfruit, and in his delusion he sees the moldy apple as something fresh and inviting. The poison of the nemfruit does not just corrupt the soul but weakens the mind as well. I can see that none of you partake of the nemfruit, the middle-aged woman commented, eyeing us with dissatisfaction. You're a tiny minority here, but you can also see what is real, and that's bad for my business. I would greatly appreciate it if you'd move along. You mean you know everything here is rotten, but you sell it anyway? Eswin responded with genuine surprise. I know it, and you know it, the merchant replied in a softer tone. But those who consume the fruit don't know it, and I want to keep it that way. I suppose it's none of our business, I replied, not wanting to escalate the conflict here. The merchant nodded, still annoyed with my party but standing down as well. And that's a wrap of episode number 37, Intruders of Oolahtz Part 2. Expect additional episodes every few weeks as the story continues.